God told me, Tiran, I could have taken you earlier. I could have taken you when that boat exploded. I could have taken you when you were in the hospital in the Bahamas and all your vitals went to red. I could have taken you the day before when you went through all these surgeries and you were unstable and you still didn't look like you were going to survive. But I'm keeping you here. And I'm keeping you here for a purpose. And the one message that he said was, be resilient. That the battles and the obstacles that you've already faced are nothing compared to the battles and challenges that you have to come.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to the Let's Rock podcast. I'm your host, Philosophikal.
And I'm your co-host, Ecko. What's good?
What's going on, y'all? As you can see, man, we have an illustrious guest, man. Mr. Tiran Jackson, man, professional speaker, author of a great book, man. Definitely recommend you guys check it out. Choosing Resilience, expert coach, and founder of his business platform, Reborn Resilient. Reborn Resilient, man. Welcome, sir. Welcome. Thank you for taking the time to come out and be with us today, man.
No doubt. I appreciate you, Philosophikal and Jay. I appreciate you guys having me be a part of your program and your platform here.
Yes. Appreciate it. Make sure you guys follow him on Instagram at Tiran Jackson Official, TikTok, and LinkedIn of the same names, man. We're gonna start off here, man. Tell us a little bit about your journey, man.
Ooh, about my journey. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go back about, let me go back 19 years ago. Okay. I was in college at Tennessee State University and getting ready to graduate from school as a mechanical engineer. I met this young lady at a club one night. Her name was Malika. Tried to get her to dance with me. She turned me down twice before finally me coming back to her. She had a drink in her hand and she wanted to set it down first. When she finally set it down, she was like, yeah, I'll dance with you. And we connected. We started dating each other, seeing each other. And then fast forward a little bit, she was the woman who I proposed to and got married to. And that was about 19 years ago. So things were good. We lived in Indiana for the first 6 or 7 years of our time together, moved to Atlanta, and we had us a good marriage, had us a very good marriage up until a point where we were getting ready to celebrate our 15th wedding anniversary. Now, this was 4 years ago. And at that point in time, I was working as an engineering manager for a small company. I was traveling a lot. She had just gotten promoted as a national director in human resources and diversity, equity, and inclusion. And so she was traveling quite a bit. So we had our one son, and it was as if we were scheduling time for her to go out of town and I'd be with our son, and then she'd come back and I'd go and do that. So we were leading up to our 15th wedding anniversary. And as this time was coming, we knew we needed to spend some time to reconnect with each other. And we thought we were going to spend 5 wonderful days in the Bahamas together, being able to just enjoy each other, celebrate this milestone accomplishment, and being able to, get a little bit of a break in the midst of everything that was busy and happening in our lives. So the day before we decided to go on this trip, I took our son to go stay with his aunt and uncle and tell them, look, son, I'm going to drop you off for a week. We'll be back next week. Come pick you up. Everything will be back to normal. Enjoy your time with your cousins. Enjoy your time with your family. All of that. Next day, we end up going on the trip to the Bahamas. First 2 days were great, phenomenal. We had some fruity drinks, some time at the beach, had some good photos taken, and a lot of great things together. On the third day, we thought we would do something not too unusual. We would go on an excursion, leave the resort, and take a 4-hour excursion to be able to tour more of the island. We got up that morning at 6:30, 7:30. We had gotten breakfast and we're at the edge of the resort getting ready to get picked up by a bus. 8 o'clock, the bus picked us up, took us to this marina. 8:45, we're getting checked in at this marina. 8:55, we're boarding this small boat thinking that we're about to have a wonderful day. 9 o'clock, the boat takes off. 9:06, 9:06, my life had changed forever. I found myself waking up face down on the surface of a burning boat. Unbeknownst to us, we were sitting above a fuel tank, and there was a fuel leak coming from that fuel tank. And without knowing what happened, the boat exploded. Now, I find myself waking up because my right leg is literally on fire. There was a second boat that took off around the same time as us. And then when I came to, I looked up and I saw the passengers on this boat yelling, "Get off the boat, get off the boat, get off the boat." And here I am. I'm trying to realize what's going on because I'm in shock. I can glance down at my left foot. I can see my left foot severed. I can see my ankle bone, blood rushing out. I try to push myself up, but I crumble. I try to push up again, but I crumble again. I didn't know it at the time, but my left collarbone was broken in 4 places. The only thing that I could do was reach my right hand out, put my fingertips in the ridges on that boat, and drag myself away from those flames until I pass out again. Now, some of the passengers from that second boat, it wasn't too far away. They came over and they pulled me off the boat and put me on their boat. And when I came to, my first question was, "Where is my wife?" Well, they tell me that she was picked up by another boat and she was taken to a clinic and that I was headed there too. Okay. So I'm put on the back of a pickup truck, taken to this clinic. And as I'm being put on a stretcher and wheeled into this clinic, I could hear Malika. I could hear my wife, her moans, her agony. She's in pain. She's suffering. And I can't do anything about it. There were 3 of us that were horribly injured as a result of that accident. One other young lady, my wife, and myself. One doctor in this clinic, he tells me that me and this other young lady are going to the good hospital and that my wife will be coming later. So this leads me to believe that, okay, despite what's happened, my wife must be better off than I am because they're sending me and this other young lady to this hospital to get additional treatment. They get me to this hospital. I go into emergency surgery. I wake up, it's about 5 hours later. First thing that I ask the doctors when they come in is, "Where is my wife? Where is she? She should be here by now." The doctors look at each other and they leave the room. And then I'm like, okay, what is going on? Why aren't they answering my question? They come back in, they tell me, "Mr. Jackson, we hate to inform you, but your wife didn't make it. That she died at that clinic. And we didn't want to tell you that. They didn't want to tell you that before you came here, had to go through surgery." So listen, here I am celebrating what's supposed to be a wonderful occasion with my wife. And just like that, my life had changed forever. She was taken away from me. I cried myself to sleep that night. The next morning, I had to wake up. And my son, who was staying with his aunt and uncle, I had to call him on the phone, 12 years old at the time, and tell him, "Son, your mom's not coming home." And then to make matters worse, having to hear his pain on the other end of the phone, having to calm him down and try to reassure to him that I was going to be okay when I didn't even know this. Later that same day, they had tried to reattach what was left of my foot to my leg. And my foot happened to be infected. So infection started going through my body. So I'm laying there in that hospital bed and I can see the EKG monitor over my head. And I can see all of my vitals go from green to yellow to red. And I'm laying there and I'm thinking and I'm praying to God, "God, you've already taken my wife. You've already broken my son's heart. I had to tell him that his mom is no longer here. And now I'm coming to grips with the fact that I'm about to die." They started bringing priests to pray over me instead of the doctors to come see me. And we're starting to just give me pain medication to deal with the pain. And so to be laying in that bed and come to a realization that next time I close my eyes is probably the last time I'm going to close my eyes was a very difficult situation to be in. Now, I was in the truest state of despair. I'm already still in shock trying to process what's going on here. I still haven't really come to grips with the fact that my wife is dead. My son has no mother, and now he's about to lose his father. And I don't know everything that's happening in the background, but I have no hope that I'm going to still be here. Now, by the grace of God, I wake up that next morning and there were actions that were being taken for a grade A trauma unit in Florida that saw what happened and say, okay, we need to get him here to try to save his life. And so things were working for me to get to Florida. And that next day, I had to go into emergency surgery again. And by this time, my sister and my mom, they had gotten to Florida. And the doctors told them that we got to do whatever we can to save his life. So that afternoon, I go into surgery and I wake up with my leg missing. They had to amputate my leg for me to have a chance to survive. Mm-hmm. Over the course of the next 7 days, I had to go through 8 surgeries to start putting the physical pieces of me back together. I had a broken right foot, 3rd-degree burns on my right leg, a fractured pelvis, fractured vertebrae, bruised ribs, broken collarbone. My left leg is missing, and I was in and out of consciousness 5 times. But there was a day that right after a day I went through 4 surgeries in one day that I was starting to process things. This was about 5 days after the accident. And I was praying to God and I was saying to God, you know, why did this have to happen to us? And what is going to happen now moving forward? God told me, Tiran, I could have taken you earlier. I could have taken you when that boat exploded. I could have taken you when you were in the hospital in the Bahamas and all your vitals went to red. I could have taken you the day before when you went through all these surgeries and you were unstable and you still didn't look like you were going to survive. But I'm keeping you here. And I'm keeping you here for a purpose. And the one message that he said was, be resilient. That the battles and the obstacles that you've already faced are nothing compared to the battles and challenges that you have to come. So that was a moment where there was a shift in my path, in my trajectory. He made it clear that I wasn't going to go back to be an engineer anymore, that the life that I had was no longer the life that I was going to have moving forward. So that started the process of me moving forward. But let me tell you, it was not easy to have to move forward from this. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I had to go through 6 weeks where I was pretty much bedridden. And my day consisted of me being pushed out of a bed into a wheelchair and being rolled into a recliner at my sister's house to sit there for about 8-9 hours just to get back in this wheelchair and go back to bed. I couldn't move. I was in a cast and I was in a sling and a back brace, all of these things because physically I was broken. And I had to get those things healed before I could even start to try to learn to maybe one day walk with a prosthetic again. But mentally, emotionally, I had to go through a great deal. I had to go through depression. I went through severe depression for the loss of my wife, anxiety, fear about what was going on. I went through severe grief and survivor's remorse. I booked that trip that we were on. And as a result of that, she's no longer here. I had to deal with a lot of mental and emotional challenges in order to figure out how I was going to move forward without having any hope and not knowing what was going to happen to me as far as being able to walk again, being able to be a father to my son, being able to make sense of life. But that was the start of my journey. That's where I was 4 years ago after suffering such tremendous loss. So everything that I knew had been taken away from me. And I had to start putting the pieces back together again. And one of those pieces was rediscovering who I was and emotionally and mentally how to move forward from such a tragic setback.
Wow. Okay.
Yes.
That's
That's a
deep, man.
story.
That's a story, man. Just hearing that journey that you went through, right? And that tells a lot of no pun intended, but your book, Choosing Resilience. And I can see, where that came from, right?
Yeah.
So even you telling us that journey, what you've been through, right? Tell us how, even today, taking action and even growing from that pain. You know what I mean? What are some things you feel like you've taken today? And I know a lot of times, man, that journey, and I know us not being in your shoes, right?
Yeah.
To be in that place of your journey, right? But we can definitely sympathize with that. Can definitely empathize with that. Can definitely, like, man, it brought a certain, like, man, like, I wish I would have known that before we recorded this. You know what I mean? I would, and it also puts me in a place to where I'm pretty sure, you know, your journey is your journey, but when you tell someone that journey, it makes my personal story and my personal journey to say, man, the same type of resiliency that God told this man is the same resiliency that he's telling me through my personal journey and story, right? And just by hearing you state that is what I learned from that, right? It's like, man, you know, the same message that God tells me during my issues within my journey is the same. It's the same message.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But sorry, Jay, I think you had something you wanted to say.
Nah, just one, I just, you know, nothing, I'm sure nothing anybody says will nothing anybody says will change what happened, and nothing anybody says will, you know, make it better, so to speak. But you know, I just one, you are an inspiring story, just where you were and where you've come to, but also, you know, just wow, like you deserve a lot more appreciation than I see you getting, because the level of work and the level of dedication that you put, like, let's start with the fact that you had this in you before. You may not have known you had it in you before, but you had this in you before all of this happened.
Yeah.
You know, you had that work in you, but you know, you were chosen to go through this, and now the world is seeing that you had it in you. But you know, just, yeah, like Phil said, talk to us a little bit about that path of taking action and actually growing from the pain, the loss, and the heartbreak.
Yeah. So no, look, I have gone through a tremendous amount that I wouldn't want anybody else to have to face that same level of tragedy, sudden tragedy and trauma to have to go through in order to learn lessons that I've learned. Like you said, it's true. We have certain situations in our life that prepare us for what we have to face down the road. Now, this is from the physical side, but when I was in my early 30s, I was a pretty good basketball player, pretty good athlete back when I was in high school and everything. Thought I was okay. Played throughout, you know, in little intramural and rec leagues and everything. And I thought one day that I was just finished working out, saw some kids out on the court playing, thought I was going to get out there and do something with them. These kids, I say kids, 18, 20, you know, in their peak premium condition. But here I am thinking I'm going to be pretty good to be able to get out there and do something because I'm feeling right. Get out there. I'm trying to guard this one kid who, I don't know if he was an all-state player or what, but he was balling. He was doing his thing. And I'm trying to guard him. And he goes to the right. I go to the right. He comes back left. I think I'm coming back to the left, but I find myself falling on the ground. And then I didn't realize, and what I thought I heard a gunshot.
Oh,
and
no.
I felt something in the back of my leg. Well, what happened was, because I came up like I was ready to fight somebody, because I thought, you know, somebody had hit me in the back of my calf. And look, I'm mad. I'm hot. Well, didn't realize it. Well, I realized it, but I had torn my Achilles, right? So here I am having to get carried up off the court. And that was painful. I had to go through the surgery, but I had to go through 8 months of physical therapy in order to get to a point where I could walk again one day, or be able to walk and be able to move like normal. So, you know, do that. I'm thinking, okay, I never want to go through this again.
Yeah.
Couple years later, I get back to a place where, and my wife at the time, she told me, you need to watch what you're doing. Don't play basketball with them kids anymore. I'm like, cool. Some of my buddies, they talk about let's get in the 35 and up league. I'm like, okay, this is my speed. I can go ahead and do that. Get out there, start playing, doing well and everything. Go to the basket hard one time. I think I'm about to get up and elevate. I end up on the ground again. For my patella tendon, my ACL, my PCL.
Oh, wow.
Back another 8 months of rehab on my leg. Now, I say these things because I had to go through them. When I had to get my left leg amputated and had to learn how to walk and get a prosthetic and go through the mental aspect of having to do this work and be disciplined about it to physically be able to get back to a place where I could do something like a normal person. I was already prepared. You know, you didn't want to have those things happen to me, but at least having, and let me tell you, it was so important for me to already have a mindset and understand what the work was going to be, because when those injuries happened to me early in life, that was all I was dealing with. When it happened, when I was in this incident, I had the emotional loss and pain I had to figure out. I had to figure out how I was going to be a father to my son. I had all of these other matters to have to deal with. So being prepared mentally and physically for what was going to come was actually a blessing in disguise. And so when we started talking about how to, you know, take action and use the pain that we go through to grow, and I like to say this because I feel as though I embody resilience and being able to bounce back, and not just bounce back, but bounce back in a better manner and use the tragedy or the pain that you go through as a means of generating and creating positive growth amongst ourselves. And so in going through these things, I had to not only physically get myself in a better condition and shape, and it's crazy because once I got into the routine and habit of being able to do the physical therapy, go work out on a regular basis, keep pushing myself. I had friends, a support system that was pushing me to be able to bounce back. I found myself not just walking again, but my walk turned into a jog, and my jog turned into a little bit of a run, and I was able to jump a little bit. And then I found myself running 5Ks. I'd never ran 5K before in my life, but doing that after going through something so drastic seemed like a major accomplishment. So, you know, these were the types of things that allowed me to grow in a better fashion. When I look at it from a mental standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, I had to address the issues that I was having. I went 39 years of my life without ever going to a therapist and doing anything from a mental health standpoint. Not because I didn't think I didn't need it, but I didn't have any major problems, or so I thought. With dealing with so much change in such a short period of time, and not even having, I lost confidence in myself. I had doubt, I had anxiety, and then I had to heal from a broken heart. All of these things. And I had to not only do that, but I had to know how to emotionally support my son who was dealing with his loss of his mother. And so to have to realize that life was going to be different, and I needed to be able to deal with the fact that I was crying uncontrollably from the sadness of my loss. I had PTSD from waking up on that boat. I had all of these little things that would happen to me that would cause me to be triggered and maybe even respond to others who were reaching out to me in ways I shouldn't. I had did a lot to isolate myself from people as much as possible. So these were issues that needed to be addressed. One of the most powerful things that I did while I was in the bed, as I was waiting to get to a point where I could actually take some action, was to actually start journaling, writing down the thoughts that were going through my mind and putting them on paper. They became real, and in some ways, that helped me process the fact that my former wife was no longer here. That she, that I had to accept the fact that she was gone. So I would write stories and write information about, you know, the times that we had, the good times, and the ways that she impacted me and helped mold me into being a person, and thanking her, giving gratitude for her for the time that she was here with me. But this made the process of being able to accept what had happened and being able to move forward a little bit easier and move me a little further down that path. And so So these were things, and as I kept continuing down this journey and addressing my mental health was a key part of this, but definitely getting to a place where I had to learn who I was again, which led me to dig deeper into my ambition, my mind, my soul, my spirit than I ever had before. You know, when you're married to somebody, you start to merge in some ways, and some of the things that that you thought you like to do is y'all like to do or we like to do. And then so you have these things that we do, and then all of a sudden when that's taken away from you, you kind of lose your identity. And I had to go through these steps of having to learn who Tiran was again. And so in the process of doing that, it helped me learn to be more vulnerable than I ever had been before, because I had to be open to try to understand why I thought the way I thought and realize the transformation that was happening to me, which made me be a definitely a more empathetic, a definitely more open, definitely more in tune, a self-aware person than I was before that incident had happened. So there's a number of ways that I grew from that.
So you brought up a good point, and I don't want to call what you went through kind of a setback, but we kind of say
it was a setback. We can do that.
okay, but I wanted to make the point to say, you know, the couple of setbacks that you went through today made you go 5 steps forward,
Exactly.
right? And relearning who you are, relearning, you know, what your purpose would be. So you spoke a couple seconds ago as far as like, you know, being vulnerable, being sympathetic, being empathetic. I, you know, just a follow up question on that, right? Why is that such a weakness within our men today, in your opinion?
Okay, so there's a lot of things that I can touch on with that.
Okay.
I think first off, with us as Black men, period, but Black men, I think that for the most part, we're conditioned to not be in touch with our emotions growing up. And I think that that's one of the things, and just to reveal a little bit about my upbringing, because that's part of what came out in the midst of me understanding who I was. My mom, she loved me, but she didn't show love. And my dad, he was physically there, but he was not emotionally there with me. Okay. And it was one of these things where, yeah, we're family, we're coexisting, we're in the same place, but there's no emotional or very little emotional support given, because he was so focused on going to work and making money and providing. And my mom, she came from a perspective that you don't, it was hard to show that affection and that love. And so I think that's definitely for me, that's part of it. But I also think that, you know, when a little girl falls down, you know, she may cry, and you wipe the tears and you treat them delicately. But for boys, it's like, get up and keep going. So even though you may be facing emotion as a kid, you're not being encouraged to show and share those emotions. So I think that was part of the problem that leads to why a lot of men have problems or difficulties today, because we don't know how to express our emotions growing up. And then we get to places in life where when everything is good and cool, we're fine. But when something throws us off, where we haven't really had to express our emotions previously, we struggle in understanding how to communicate those. And I think that that's more prevalent in the Black community as with Black men as it is with a lot of other communities, and from the female to male perspective. So I think that's where part of it begins. And then I think the other piece of it too is just as men, we typically operate from a masculine perspective, meaning that our core and our initial response is to be masculine and not necessarily reveal anything that's going to show weakness. And it's not until we become honest with ourselves. And that's one thing I had to learn how to do, is be just as honest with myself as possible to understand how I was going to move forward. And being able to be vulnerable and transparent in that way allowed me to be better in tune with my emotions, which makes it easier for me to be able to deal with, when changes and things happen, and being able to be open about how I feel. And really what I'm realizing is, as we do that and do it publicly, it makes it a little bit easier to bring other men to say, okay, let me go ahead and understand my emotions as well. Let me take that step and be able to share how I feel about certain situations. Because ultimately, and then when it comes to relationships as a whole, with our significant others, our friends, our family, a lot of it comes back to communication. But if you're not really emotionally available, you're not communicating, honestly and fully with others. So I think that that's a piece of, why it's a little bit harder for Black men, to be able to be open, because I think we have certain levels of dysfunction for the most part earlier in our lives that might cause us to be that way as we get older. Sorry for the long-winded answer, but
No.
That's perfect.
That's perfect. I wanted to ask, do you feel like sometimes we as Black men, we choose partners that don't allow us to express ourselves emotionally or vulnerably, or it's on the man itself?
No, I think that I think that's part of it too. I think that's part of it too. But I think the part of it is that we don't always work to develop the way that we need to be loved and addressed and accepted with that person.
Okay.
So we sort of don't really allow them to see deep into us until it may be later. And then sometimes we get into situations where, okay, you're dealing with, how do I want to say it? You're dealing with the representative of that person. And so you got two people who might not be fully transparent with each other. And it makes it harder to get that communication going like it needs to be, where they can truly understand you, so you can feel comfortable being, emotionally with them for the highs and lows. And so, that's part of it too. And I encourage being as open and honest about how I feel. And that's, when I look at my progress, and I feel like I was victim to this with my former wife, where I might not have been as open and transparent, but in going through what I went through, it helped prepare me for meeting my current wife, to be able to move forward and treat that relationship in a better manner, because I knew that it was important for me to be who I was and be able to share those things, so we could have a better relationship by having that type of dialogue.
I do think. Oh, go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
I mean, playing a little bit of a devil's advocate. Well, not a little bit. Playing devil's advocate. What? How would you respond to folks who say that, oh well, that lack of vulnerability is part of how you build resilience? Not sharing, being able to endure in silence. The strong silent type. What would you say to folks who say that that's what resilience looks like?
I would say to them that they don't understand resilience. Resilience comes from going through certain situations, experiences, and challenges. When you're holding stuff in, well, you may be creating challenges. You might be building a certain type of resilience, but it might not be a resilience that's going to, at the end of the day, make things better for yourself.
There you go. Okay, cool.
So there's a lot of, and where this comes back to, I think, is it comes back to our initial beliefs. And you don't have to agree with me by any means, Jay, but I think a lot of us might have, preconceived notions, thoughts, and beliefs by not addressing an issue. And this goes back to my thing about being honest with yourself. If you ask yourself, well, if I just keep this in, if I'm just gonna figure this all out by myself, I'm making myself stronger. But honestly, is that what you want to do? Or do you want to get to a resolution where you can have peace and be comforted? And so I would challenge somebody who says that might be the approach to build resilience, because ultimately we want to be able to be better prepared for the challenges that we're going to face down the road. And if we're depriving ourselves from maybe having to deal with a little bit of conflict now, in order for me to get better understanding from my partner and vice versa, then you're hurting yourself down the road, because all of these little things, and this goes into another topic I like to talk about, because we all have our pains, our traumas, and then we have these little micro traumas that be the other little bitty things that start to stack up and stack up and stack up. And when you wonder why people pop off sometimes, when it might be something minor, all of these things are like a weight on our shoulders, and they get heavier and heavier and heavier. And then when you start seeing not just the major issues, not the financial issues that we're having, or we can't get along right now and these type of things, then you have these other little things added on top of it that they cause us to have dysfunction within our lives and dysfunction within ourselves. And all of these, they play on our mental and emotional health. So we got enough challenges on our own that need to have to hold things back that could be greater challenges down the road. So
I will add to that. I think you guys are, I think there's what Jay just mentioned, the devil advocacy is not mentioning those vulnerabilities, and Tiran mentioning that, hey, there's going to be a time we're going to have to address it. I think Jay's point is, I think that's what a lot of men probably are battling within themselves.
Yeah.
And Tiran is, I think, in so many words, are telling you, in order for you to be successful, not only in life, but in long-term relationships, I think you're going to have to either address them before you enter a relationship, or address them with the right person while you're in a relationship. One of the two. Because I feel like you brought up a good point, Tiran, is that I think sometimes we as men, we get in multiple relationships and we go through a revolving cycle, and we can't figure out why certain aspects of the relationship aren't working. And when we don't figure that out, and we don't address some things personally within us, because that's kind of what it means, we keep repeating the process.
Right.
We keep repeating the cycle. Right. And all it does is it delays time. Right. You get older, and you're trying to figure out why you're not successful in certain aspects of your life, whether that may be career or relationship or whatever. I do feel like this is part of our next question I'm going to ask also, is that, going through the cycle, not challenging yourself, because we're quick to blame each other, men and women, each other, on things that you're either going to have to address before you get in a relationship, or be with the right person that's willing to ride with you and be with you and help you address each other's issues. Because that's really the solution to a long-term relationship and a marriage. You've got to, and we've spoken about this on our show, right? You got to be able to be with someone that you can be vulnerable with, share certain things with, but also willing to give you the openness to speak to them about it, right? Because let's be real, right? Tiran spoke about a lot of his vulnerabilities and we even call it insecurities. Women have the same thing, right?
We all do.
And we all do. We all do. But I think there's such a shift in the fact that it's okay for women to speak on these insecurities and vulnerabilities and issues that will be going on. But like being said, men are conditioned to hold that in. And it really doesn't come out until we're affected financially, emotionally, physically, instead of voicing those concerns when you do have that peace, right? Constantly working within yourself or in the relationship and marriage that you're in, right? So that kind of brings me to the next question.
Before you drop that question, I just wanted to add to that. Like, Tiran, I like what you said when you said, get to peace, because I think that's ultimately the thing that a lot of us we misconstrue. We think the momentary peace is everything. So it's like, oh, I'm uncomfortable right now, but I'm not really trying to, I don't want to cause an issue, or I'll deal with it later, or, I just want things to be peaceful for right now, not knowing that we're building to, like you said, a blow up further down the line. The longer we suppress, the longer we hold back, the longer we stay silent. And, we've said multiple times to the audience and to each other that, like, ultimately what we as people, and especially men, want is peace.
Yeah.
Like, so when we find a partner, when we find a person, when we find a wife who will give us peace, then we will stay. But we often neglect the fact that peace comes from within. You have to do the work to find your own peace. Otherwise, no one person, there's no magic pill there's no Prince Charming, there's no, Southern Belle, there's no, good girl, there's no one silver bullet that's going to bring you peace if you don't address what's going on inside of you.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that, what you said just brought to the forefront.
Yeah.
And just to just go off of that a little bit more, and I think it comes back in my journey, that self-awareness and understanding, looking in the mirror and really digging deep into who I was, gave me that level of understanding as to what I really wanted out of life, and how I really operated, and get past this shell of who I was. So to me, that's where, from a emotional and mental health standpoint, I grew tremendously. And that made me feel as though I'm more confident in being able to address certain situations and circumstances and move forward in life at peace with myself, because I gained that understanding of who I was. And I think that's where a lot of us struggle. We know who this surface person of us is. We know who the partial person we might give our spouse or our family members or those other things, but we don't know who we really are. And when we dig into that, then it becomes easier to get to that place of peace and knowing where your peace resides. So I leave it there. But I just wanted to say that off the way, Jay.
So I think we kind of spoke about, challenging yourself through, a lot of that. I want to kind of talk about, let's talk about therapy with our Black men. We spoke about on how to, some of the things you have to do to challenge yourself, be vulnerable, show that empathy, but also, be yourself. Let's talk about how important is therapy, within our Black men, and even in the community of men, right? How important do you feel that is, Tiran? Because you mentioned, through your journey, you went through a lot of that therapy. Kind of speak about how that helped you and how it can help, our men.
So I see therapy. So let me start off by saying this.
Okay.
And going and relating back to what we talked about a little bit earlier. We want peace. However, I think a lot of us have experienced in our upbringing, in our early, where we have been in life, organized chaos. And this is who we become. And this is what we got used to. And so we expect that. We expect that organized chaos as opposed to peace. So where therapy comes into play here, I look at therapy as being able to reflect back and understand how I got to where I am today. And so when you go through therapy and you actually go in and start to diagnose those situations in your past that have caused you to think and view the world in the perspectives that you do, you start to see that, oh, there were some problems with what I was accepting as normal earlier in my life. Now that I've identified a problem, I've got something that I know that's a part of me that I can go forward and address or break. When we don't go through this process of therapy and discovery, we continue to operate with that organized chaos as being who we are and who we will be. So I think there are a lot of men who have this within themselves that they never even tap into or discover or understand. So it just continues a cycle of operating in this dysfunction. And you got a whole bunch of dysfunctional people out here. There's going to be problems that's going to arise. So I hope that makes sense. But I think that that's part of what the therapy starts to open up those layers and those pieces as to why we are who we are at this point.
So do you feel, you mentioned you feel like men are starting to or already have conditioned themselves to deal with dysfunction within relationships, which also, in my opinion, disrupts peace.
Yeah. I think and this is bigger than just relationships. I think this is how we function with others through our jobs, with the people who we interact with every day, even the way that we view certain things that happen in the world overall. All of these things are results of some of the things that we've been brought up to believe that were normal and okay. And so it, like I said, as we start to diagnose those things that have happened to us or have caused us to think this way, then it opens us up to really get into understanding that piece and maybe realizing the changes that we might need to make in our mindset and our thoughts and our perceptions of ourselves going forward. So that
I will also mention, you spoke earlier a good point, and I just want to kind of elaborate on that. As far as being the way you were brought up, right? You mentioned that your mom didn't give you that, nurturing attention, and then your dad, his only way of was going to work all the time, not being that emotional and mental presence. I can tell you right now, I feel like that is a normalcy within our men, right?
Exactly.
And what that does is they see that as a young child and they become that. Right?
Exactly.
They become that with the relationships to where they condition themselves to where my only job is to go to work and provide.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like, we're expecting mothers to now also, when the father's not around, go to work, provide, nurture, provide emotional stability, mental stability. But also, I also want to speak on what does that leave the man to do? Right. It's still such a barrier. I feel like such a divide as far as like our men feeling like being mentally and emotionally unavailable for our relationships and also our future children as weak.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I tell you right now, I feel like, hearing that, as far as, man, it makes me wonder, like, man, that's kind of the way I was brought up, right? My dad always instilled in me to, never stop working, always provide, be prepared, be prepared to not be able to provide for your family. Always prepare yourself for emergencies. Always prepare yourself for the worst.
Yeah.
Right. And I feel like that's what us as men are doing. We're preparing for breakups. We're preparing to get fired from our job. We're preparing for setbacks, right? And what that does is that constantly stays on our mind to be on alert and on defense. But at the same time, we're instilling that in our boys and our young men, right? We're not teaching our men to, be the provider, but also, have the mental awareness to speak up what you want, speak up how you feel. Right. And conditioning our young men and our young boys to, just don't say anything. Shut up and sit down. Don't say anything. Right. And, I feel like therapy is important, but I think it also goes back to, I think certain men don't want to go to therapy because they don't want to share that vulnerability.
No.
I think you're spot on right there. I think you're spot on.
Yeah.
And so,
I mean,
go ahead.
Yeah. All right. So I know, like, speaking from same thing, like for a very long time, personally, like my whole thing was I just want to be I want to be able to provide for myself. I want to be self-sufficient, right? And the idea for that was, if I'm completely self-sufficient, then when somebody else shows up, then I'm absolutely certain I can provide for that other person. And yeah, that's true in one aspect. You know, you're always able to provide for the other person, your children, your wife, whoever, your family. But on the other side of it, you know, that shut up and do your job, that mentality, I think it causes two problems. One, it's you never end up building any emotional intelligence, because it's just like, it doesn't matter how I feel.
Right.
I just need to be able to work. So you've basically disregarded an entire aspect of who you are and a path to maximizing who you could be through the emotional aspect of things. But then from the physical, I mean, the trauma aspect of things, you know, you never address any of the things that could be a problem. And also, another thing that I just thought of is, like, you know, we often hear about this attitude of abundance, right? For people who are striving for success, you know, they have this attitude of abundance. They have this attitude of, you know, there's always opportunity, but you know, the way we're talking about it, what we're, you know, like, oh, you always have to be prepared, you always have to be, you know, yes, it's logical, but it's almost like we're coming from an attitude of scarcity rather than an attitude of abundance.
Yeah.
And we end up, and I've done this myself, and I've seen it manifest in my own life, where, you know, you sabotage yourself because you're holding on to the one little bit of what you have, because you're so afraid that you're not going to be able to get any more. And you stifle your own growth because you're so, I mean, let's be real about it, you're so afraid that you don't, you know, you don't grow.
I want to add to that. Oh, go ahead, Jay. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Phil. Go ahead.
I want to add to that, because I feel like you said a perfect word, abundance. I think we as men, and also, you know, as women, we're treating dating, relationships, and marriage like abundance, right? We view it as, like, if this person doesn't, let's say, for example, if a man doesn't address a lot of the issues he knows he has, and he can find a woman that does not accept that, there's so much abundance out here in a man's mentality. I can just go get a woman that can accept me not addressing a lot of the issues that I have, right? Or I'm not addressing, right? Accept a lot of the issues I'm not willing to address, because there's so much abundance out here in the fact that, because so many relationships are failing in that manner, because they're like, I don't have to change. I can just go out and get another relationship. I can go out and get married again. And I don't have to, as a man, do I have to address these issues when it's so easy for me, abundance, to go out and get a woman that will accept it? Right? So I think that's the main issue, as far as, like, why it's such a problem with men being vulnerable, men being emotionally unavailable, men not taking the accountability, as far as, like, you know, look how it's affecting our young men today. Why? Because it's become easy to just go out and get another person, you know, that's willing to accept you're lacking in other areas.
Well, I'll say yes, and I'll say it's easy to go out and get another person, but it's hard to go out and keep another person.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Like,
Yeah.
and that's what we keep running into. It's like, oh yeah, I'll just get somebody else. And then, like you were speaking about earlier, we end up in that revolving door of, oh, I'm in a new relationship because that other one didn't work. Oh, I'm in a new relationship because I'll get a new relationship because this one isn't working, you know, and it's you know, like you were saying, Tyron, it's you haven't addressed any of the issues and you're wondering why, you know, and you're wondering why you're not experiencing any change. And it's because the core issue has never been addressed.
Yeah.
Did you have something to add to that, Tyran?
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I got something to add. I won't be long-winded on this one, but
No,
three
go
words
ahead.
that I wanted that come to mind in the midst of this conversation. I'm loving this dialogue that we're having. The first one is balance. And when I say balance, and going back to the way that we perceive what our value is that we bring, and we think that we have to work and have to provide and we have to do all of these things. When you're doing those things, you are putting all of your energy, or a great deal of your energy, into that one aspect of your life. You got to have balance between the relationships that you have with your kids, with your family, with those things, with yourself, what makes you happy outside of working, and then being able to create that balance, because when you're so focused on that one thing, it skews everything else. So we have to find that balance. That's the first thing. 2, happiness. What makes us happy? How often do you ask yourself, does this make me truly happy? When you are with that one person, and this goes back to the whole abundance that we're talking about, and especially philosophical from your perspective, when we think abundance as we have a lot of options out here to choose from in women or so, and if this one doesn't work, then I'll just go out there. Ask yourself, does this one, am I at my happiest when we're with this one, when I'm with this one person? And does that happiness exceed having to start over and hope I have happiness with one of these others out here? You got that's a peace question inside. That's a question we have to be real with ourselves to understand that piece. And then the last thing I wanted to say.
I'm sorry to cut you off. Can you kind of elaborate on that? Because I feel like I guess I want to kind of understand what you're saying. Are you saying that does this person that we call the one make me happier than previously? Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm saying maybe not previously, but does it have you in a place where you're ultimately happy? Because if you're not happy, to me, that's what would trigger you to say, okay, I'm tired of dealing with this. I don't necessarily want to keep fighting for this one or this situation. So I'm going to find another situation. And I'm using a relationship as an example, but this applies to a lot of different things. Check where you are from a happiness level with things when things are, I know it's hard to be happy when things aren't great, but when they are at their peak, when they are great, and you ask yourself that question and you say, okay, this is where I'm at my happiest. This is the person I'm with my happiest. This is a job that I'm at my happiest. That, you know, these are the things that make me happy. These are my activities I like to do that make me happy. Then it's easier to say, and that goes into my third point, because my third point is choice and choice. We all have choices in what we want to do. If we want to stick with something, and because it makes us happy, and we know that it might not be great right now, but it can be great again later, then we're more prone to work on that thing. However, it is a choice to say, I don't want to deal with all the mess, everything I got to go through in order to make that decision to go back there. So I'm going to make the easier choice and go find something else to do, or someone else, or something of that nature. So we all got to be mindful that we have the power to choose where we want to do. So that was what I wanted to share. So
yeah, no. I completely agree with that. But I think the main thing is that balance. I'll even call it balance, happiness, and choices. Right? I think we as men, we're compromising on all three of those. For and I wanted to hit on this point earlier. I feel like we're trying to find peace in long-term and successive relationships with attraction, with beauty, performance in bed, what this person can offer me physically, how they're offering it to me physically. Everything's kind of an external.
I agree.
Surface, if that's the right term to use, right? So when you say balance, happiness, choices, I think we as men, we're compromising on all three of those. Let me explain why. And I'm not saying you're wrong, but I feel like we as men, we're compromising. I'll even speak on balance, right? When a man finds the one and he feels he's at his true happiest, right? Not all men, some men. What's the first thing they do, right? They lead with their money, which brings a imbalance of power because you're stating that I'm giving you the balance to, and maybe this is a part of who a man is, right? I just don't believe that either, right? In order for me to gain balance, I'm going to buy you in some sort of way, right? And that equates to happiness. In order for you to be happy with me, I'm going to give you something, right? And then I've made a choice to lead with my money as far as balance and as far as feeling powerful, because that makes me at my happiness. Now, is that help things on a long-term situation? No. But I think that's what's happening today.
Yeah.
Right? I think we as men, we've said on this show many times that it's a man's choice to pursue a woman, but we're choosing women on the wrong things when it comes to balance, power, and choices. We're compromising on all three.
Yeah.
We're balancing social media, materialistics, and outweighing that with peace, right? We'd rather have materialistic things, attraction, beautiful, I even call them trophy women, Instagram models over peace.
Yeah.
Right. We're compromising. And I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just trying to bring a statement.
I'm loving your perspective on it because it reveals other things. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. You good. And I feel like that's when it comes to balance, right? When it comes to happiness, I feel like men are triggered by these happinesses to feel like I need you to look a certain way for me to be at my happiness, to give you something in return. Point blank. And I feel like let's just be real about it. Right?
No, look, I'm with you. I see what you're saying.
Let's just be real about it. And then we're allowing our choices, right? The way we're choosing women, the way we're choosing to stay in relationships, the way we're choosing to stay in marriages, in situations that may not necessarily equate to the happiest we could be on different levels, we're giving up that choice. Because we're choosing to give all our power. We're choosing to give away all our identity. We're choosing to turn who we really are in benefit to fit someone else's identity to try to make them at their happiest. And I feel like men have been conditioned in that manner. 100%.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? I didn't know if you had some thoughts on that, Tiran or Jay.
So I will agree and disagree.
Okay.
So I agree with you in that there are definitely imbalances in how we are approaching our choices, our choices are. So I guess my disagreement is with the order of operations, so to speak. I think
that's a good word. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So I think the choices we are making are because we are attempting to gain happiness, right? So we make choices in pursuit of happiness, but the imbalance we experience affects our choices and we make the wrong ones. So what we perceive to be our happiness is not correct.
To who though?
So
to who?
It's not internally. So like you said, like you were saying, you know, we ultimately seek relationships because we believe relationships will bring us happiness. But then we base our criteria for selecting who we're going to pursue a relationship with based on looks, performance in bed, how much lifestyle, that sort of thing, you know, as opposed to the things that bring peace, like you were saying. That's
Yeah.
that's why I say I agree and disagree.
Yeah.
You know, because let's you know what, let's do a real world example about it. You know, like on this side I have, you know, Victoria's Secret model. You know, she was a calendar, you know, all this top stuff, you know.
Yeah.
And on this side I have, you know, the woman who, you know, I can crack jokes with, laugh with, you know, I can share a meal with, and you know, all of this sort of stuff. Am I going to choose the Victoria's Secret model who I can only have a conversation with for 2 to 3 minutes before I'm just like, all right, and I'm good? Or am I going to choose the quote unquote average woman who, you know, I can laugh with, I can see myself sharing a life with eventually? It's just she doesn't look like the Victoria's Secret model. Who am I going to choose? Now, the imbalance, you know, if I'm deciding, oh, the visual is more important, I'm going with Victoria's Secret. If I decide like, oh, based on my boys are saying, yo, she's bad, you know, okay, I'm gonna go with the external factors and go with, okay, they said this, so obviously she's the better choice, as opposed to internally, I know internally I have a better time when I'm with this other person over here.
Yeah.
I know, but she don't look like she looks over here. So I'm gonna go with over here.
Yeah.
And you know, you made that choice based on a flawed measuring system. Yeah. So that's why I say I agree and I disagree, because it's like, yeah, you're doing the right thing in terms of you are trying to pursue going about it the wrong way.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's what a lot of us end up running into.
Yeah. Did you have something to add, Tiran?
Oh no, I think this is a great conversation because I see the Victoria's Secret model. We all have our preferences, and preferences lead to happiness, or at least the process of figuring out what makes us happy here. And those things might allow us to be able to get to a place where, okay, this first level of boxes are checked. Now I got to dig deeper and understand, can I have that conversation with you for more than 2 to 3 minutes? Can I actually enjoy those things? And now we're getting a little bit deeper and deeper and deeper. And I think the goal to get to happiness is to find the one that you can drill all the way down and be like, okay, this is the person that makes me the happiest. Happiness comes from within. So that other person, you know, she can look good all day and everything, but if she's not fulfilling you emotionally, then that's going to be another void that's left out. And so I think it's, you know, and so I think there's got to be a balance of all of these factors that go into it that allow us to at least get to a place where we make a choice that we want to pursue further. And that's where the decision comes in. And it's vice versa too. For the women, that same thing for, you know, looking at us guys and everything, that certain things are just going to be on the surface that we're drawn to. And those are those preferences that allow us to take that next step and maybe explore. And Phil, I feel what you were saying earlier, because, you know, we are doing this exchange for, you know, monetarily, I'm providing in order to find out more about you, essentially. Trade off there. But, this is there's a lot to unpack. Look, if y'all want to invite me back for 2 more shows,
definitely, man. Definitely, because I feel like this is something that let's just be real, right? Each one of us can say, man, we've been through that. Or to say we either know somebody that's going through that right now, or to say, you know, I've been through that. I'm not going back down that road again.
Right, right.
Right. And I feel like, and I was just about to ask a question like to Jay, just out of laughs and giggles. What do you think is more riskier, Jay? The Victoria's Secret model or the average woman? How much work do you feel like you have to put into that?
I mean, what's more risky? That's a rough question, my guy.
Yeah, I'm just saying. I mean, let's just think about it. Today's answer is different than would have been for you, me, and Tiran maybe 5-10 years ago. Like heck yeah, I'm going after that Victoria's Secret model. But today is like,
I'll
nah.
say, I mean, if you ask me today, and I'm serious about my answer, you know, I would say the quote unquote average woman is riskier, because
okay.
The reason I say that is because, again, the things that attract you to Vicky's Secret are surface level. They don't require as much investment. They don't require as much, like he said, the drilling down to figure out all of the things. Now that it's not, I'm not saying, you know, you won't do the same thing with Victoria's Secret. Hopefully you are doing the same thing, regardless, you know, whichever person you are approaching and trying to get into a relationship.
I don't think you're looking to go deep with the Victoria's Secret model.
Exactly. It's easier not to with Victoria's Secret, because you got into it based on the surface level. So the second you are asked to go deeper, it's just like, well, why am I going to do that? You're not as invested.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're talking about, like I said, the quote unquote average, I mean, and I'm using average woman because that's just what the language that we use. But it's like when you're dealing with somebody who would be considered average, you're not going to, we call them average, but we're not going for average. You know, we're going for the outliers that make them compatible with us. And because we are going for that, if you don't find them, like, you have to invest a little bit more in finding those. And it can even hurt a little bit more when you realize, oh, I haven't found it sometimes.
That's true.
I don't know if I'm articulating it properly, but it's like, okay, are you going just for the, okay, I know how I'll phrase it. It's like you're going for a summer fling versus an actual relationship, right?
Correct. Flavor of the month.
How much more invested are you in the summer fling than you are in the relationship? In the what's it called? Yeah, go ahead.
I say I'll end it on this. I feel like there's a higher probability and a risk of the succession rate being lower with the Victoria's Secret model than it would be you having to dig deeper with an average woman, because an average woman, hardworking woman that may have the same things you're aligned with on all types of facets of life may challenge you to do better as a man, may challenge you to be vulnerable emotionally, mentally, you know, may make you step out of your comfort zone. Where Victoria's Secret model, that maybe in some respects to some men, maybe I've had this flavor before. I've gone down this road. It's easy. You know, I just have to do this and this and this and this and this. But a good woman in some respects can challenge you to be better than who you are today. And I feel
and I think, and this isn't me saying, and I want to be clear about this, just because I don't think when we use the term good woman or average woman versus Victoria's Secret model, I don't want people to take away from that we are saying, oh, certain women have more intrinsic value than others or anything. Certain people have intrinsic value regardless, you know.
Yeah.
No, nothing makes this person better than that person. the only difference between people is maybe circumstance and choice, right?
And,
That's go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
and personality.
Well, I mean,
personality.
I think personality is a byproduct of circumstance and choice.
Okay.
That's what I say.
Okay. You got something to add to Ray? You laugh. It looks
No,
like
I think it's good. I just want to ask, okay, you got to ask yourself what makes me happy. Do I want the summer fling? Do I want the Victoria's Secret? Maybe that's what makes you happiest. Maybe you want and so there, I think it comes to understanding what drives you first before having the debate about, oh, should I go this route with the Victoria's Secret or this route with the regular girl, the average girl who has all these, positive aspects from a compatibility personality standpoint.
There we go. Yeah.
The better you understand yourself and what you really want, the easier it is to figure out what direction you want to go in. So that's all I'm going to add.
That's true. No, that's true. That's true.
So that I have a follow-up question for you, Tiran. So this discussion we've been having, do you think not taking this stuff into account is part of why a lot of men, but let's talk specifically about Black men. Do you think that's why a lot of us end up stuck or dealing with a feeling of being stuck in a specific situation or circumstance?
Yeah, I think a lot of us as men, and myself included in ways, we don't realize what we don't know, and we don't realize ourselves. So what happens is we think we understand what's best for us, but we never really dove in to really figure out, do I really like this or not? So we keep doing the same thing over and over again. And that's what keeps us stuck. And it's because we think this is the right thing to do. But if you look at your track record, if you go back and reflect on certain situations and what I could have done differently or what caused us to go this way, then maybe you'll have a little bit of understanding and awareness on what to avoid the next time. But a lot of the times, I think we just keep it moving and we don't go back and look at the lessons we should have learned from the situation and say, okay, I did this wrong, or this person was wrong for this reason, or these red flags were there and I didn't act on it because I didn't want to see it. Maybe I didn't want to see it. Maybe I just wasn't looking for it at that time. But those things, if we're not going back and looking to address and change those things, then we're doomed to repeat it again. And so, I think that's true. And I know we're talking largely about relationships here, but, from a financial standpoint, I think we run into situations like that from a career standpoint and things with, jobs or whatever industry, whatever we're doing, that we can find ourselves repeating things. And sometimes I think we repeat things out of familiarity. And sometimes it's because of the way, going back to the earlier conversation, the way we were brought up and some of those initial thoughts and beliefs that this is the way it's supposed to be, that, organized chaos. I'm supposed to have this level of stress and drama in my life from certain areas. So I accept it for what it is and not really go through and try to address it and make it better. So I think that, and just the whole increased emotional awareness and understanding who you are, I think, and that's where the whole therapy and really digging deep in how we think, how we operate, helps us to not stay stuck. So trying to be shorter with it and everything, but
that's straight to the point and direct. I agree 100%. I think we've kind of spoke about a lot of the love within the Black community. So we're going to kind of go into our wrap it up session. Everybody knows, man, this is where we give our guests that couple moments to kind of let the audience know, give them some gems. And Mr. Tiran Jackson, man, you got the floor, man.
All right. Well, I'll say a couple of things. First off, Philosophikal, Jay, thank you guys for letting me be a part of this platform with you guys. And hopefully it'll be some intriguing, interesting, and thought-provoking points that are taken away from this by everybody who gets to see it. I've enjoyed to be able to share my story and my story, and just there's a lot of aspects to it, but like I said before, I speak and I embody and I feel that resilience is a key part of me, helping people overcome their traumas, tragedies, and transitions in life and help them make transformations so they can become triumphant is what I'm here for now. A lot different than what my life was as an engineer. But I want to leave a couple of things, a couple of points with you. I like to talk about how we all are going to face challenges and adversities at times, but I want to say this: it's our reaction to the adversity that we face in life, not the adversity that itself that defines our life story. So be more aware and more mindful, maybe not about the obstacle that you're facing, but how are you going to react in that situation? That's going to define what you do with yourself and how you get past those things. So we all are going to have those issues and challenges in life. And then the thing about my true definition of resilience, when I talk about resilience, it's not regaining what was lost, but it's about reshaping what remains. Think about that. We're going to have things that happen to us in life. Everything is not going to always be great. We can't go back and fix what was done. Some of the problems, some of the challenges, they are what they are. We have to focus on what we can control and what resources we have left to define what our future is going to be. So I want us to be able to say that there's another quote that I like. I think Maya Angelou said it. I'm not what's happened to me. I am what I choose to become. And so when we look back at where we are and how we got to the places that we are, you know, there are going to be things that we're going to be proud of and happy about, and things that we may not be, you know, the most excited about. Some decisions that we made, some choices that happened, and maybe some circumstances that happened to us completely out of our control. However, let's be able to truly focus and figure out what steps, what actions, what changes am I going to make in order to make my life be the way that I want it to be. Regain control of that life and not just let life happen to you. So on that, yeah, look, like I said, we can talk about a lot of things. I want other men to be willing to take that step to understand who you are, where you are, and how you're going to get to where you want to get to. One other one. Everywhere we got in life, our mind got there first. You got to see it. You got to be able to visualize. You got to be able to have an understanding idea before you can actually take those steps to make your life where you want it to be, and not just let life happen to you, like I said before. So I'll stop right there. I appreciate you letting me wrap it up. Guys, it's been great.
I mean,
hey man, really, really appreciate you coming on with us, man. Mr. Tiran Jackson, man, author. Make sure you guys, his book will be down in the description. Choosing Resilience, expert coach, founder of his business platform, Reborn Resilient. Make sure you guys follow him on Instagram at Tiran Jackson Official, TikTok, and LinkedIn at the same handles, man. Make sure you guys like and subscribe and share on our YouTube page. Make sure you guys engage with us. Let us know what you guys think, man. What a great conversation with Mr. Tiran Jackson, man. Really learning and appreciating his journey.
And thank you for being willing to share, man. That
man.
You have an amazing story, and like you practice what you preach. You were vulnerable enough to come on here with two dudes you essentially don't know. And just share your story and share your truths with us, and we appreciate you for it, man. So
no problem. I appreciate you guys being willing to have me here, man. And look, like I said, y'all my brothers now, man. We can chop it up again some other time.
Definitely. We're definitely gonna get you back for more shows. Make sure we get your book. Make sure you guys get his book. Definitely read more into his journey. Follow him, man. Great content on his Instagram page. Great impact. Just learning a lot about him, man. Make sure you guys follow him and follow Let's Rap Podcast, Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe, like, and share here on our YouTube page here. All right. I'm Philasophikal from the Let's Rap Podcast. We are out. Peace, y'all.
I'm Jay Ecko. Take it easy and give somebody some roses this week.
Man, appreciate you guys having me. shout out to y'all, man. And yeah, I'm happy to be here, man.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, man. You guys are doing amazing things.
Good, man. We doing good. I see you guys looking great.
Well, I appreciate y'all for having me out, taking y'all time, and promoting positive Black image.